Well, this was a rocky start for me on this episode, but Candace, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, I'm excited to have this conversation, especially because even just a few days ago, I was chatting with a friend of mine, and I had let him know that I was going to be chatting with you. And I told him, his issue that he's going through right now. He's an incredible musician, he's a good singer, and he's a bilingual singer. And I told him this on our chat the other day, and I said, if you had just kept posting a song a week for the last 2 years, I think you could have been somewhere really far today if you had started 2 years ago when I met you. And that kind of opened his eyes, and he sent me a text and he's like, man, I was thinking about what you said, and I think you're right, but I just have this thing that's holding me back from starting. It almost feels like the stuff I'm putting out now won't make a difference, so why continue, right? And I figured that would be a perfect segue to start with our conversation, because you talk about, the self-sabotaging aspect and negative talk and things like that. So what do you think is going on here?
Well, really, almost all of our issues boil down to a lack of self-love, right? I don't believe in myself. I don't trust myself. I don't love myself. I'm defensive or apologetic about, sorry I exist. Sorry I'm a loser. Sorry we're just, a lot of us lead with a sense of like apology about ourselves. And that's across all the personality types. The lack of loving yourself, trusting yourself, believing in yourself really limits what you believe you're capable of. You talk yourself out of all your joy that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think this idea of worthiness is a cultural issue, a modern issue? Is it something just part of the human condition? Or are we being pressured into people more and more today believing they can't?
Oh, that's such a cool question. I see it. So I see the world in personality type. And I see all the personality types as sort of two versions, the sleepwalking version and the conscious awake version. The sleepwalking version is our ego running everything. That's the ego version of our personality type. And that is what is convincing us to play small. And we've all had an ego. As long as we've been in a body, there's an ego. That's what's holding you inside your body, so it's sort of an anchor. And the default is a closed heart, a lack of self-love, a lack of sense of deeper connection. So I think that question about worthiness is active for people who are in the asleep state across all the personality types. And then when you sort of awaken to the fact that you're a much more powerful being than you knew, and that you have nothing to fear, and that you have worth and you have something to offer, then you're not questioning your worth any longer. So it's really that activating the heart and connecting to a higher sense of self.
That's really interesting. So you're saying, for example, right, this is where I think is interesting. Let's use the example with my friend here.
Yeah.
Is he then, in a way, starting to cross over to more conscious sense of self and personality? And that's where that dissonance is where he is, that frustration portion. What I'm trying to say here is, you're saying they're the sleepwalking personality, but when someone is starting to become aware of their sleepwalking personality, is that a transitional period? What's going on?
Yes.
Okay.
When you're starting to notice your patterns, when instead of just being bought into this story of I'm not worth anything, now I'm starting to notice that I'm having these thoughts right. So I'm now in more of an observer position. Instead of being totally bought into this story, I'm actually watching myself being in a story. And that is absolutely the beginning of realizing I am not this. Like there's a me who can watch this. So the one that's in the story is not the real me. The one who's sitting back and watching it all happen from a neutral state is the real me. And so that's when you start, realizing there's a bigger me here, and I've just got patterns that I need to get through.
Then what would your advice be for that transitional period, right? Because there's this portion that's holding you back from, I guess it's almost like what do they call it? An identity death or ego death or something, right? Where a part of you is dying, an old part that you at some point resonated with, or whatever your sleepwalking personality resonated with. So there is a portion of you that dies, right? So is that the part that's anchoring someone from transitioning very quickly?
Yeah, right. I mean, the desire to be creative, that is a totally authentic, that's the real you trying to express itself, right? It's just coming from you and you love it. And then there's this other aspect of you saying, no, that's not good enough. This isn't going to be received well. There's part of you who wants to engage with the full world. And then there's this other part of you saying, no, you probably shouldn't do that. You should play small. So, yeah, there's our own inner self-doubt. And then there's all the world who encourages you to play small, and a lot of people will ask for advice from somebody, but the advice that you're getting is from their version of playing small, and so, yes, you have to kind of give yourself permission to shed that, to say, I'm not going to buy into that and I'm going to go bigger. And so, yes, being willing to put yourself on that path equals saying goodbye to a lot of your old life, which is hard. And that is what holds a lot of people back.
It almost seems so simple, right? So easy. And I love watching this entrepreneur named Myron Gold, and his take is very interesting. He uses a lot of religion and spirituality in business, but it was really interesting. He had said this one thing about, it doesn't take you a long time to create a successful business. It takes you a long time to become the person that's willing to do it. And that just wholly opened my eyes, because it's so simple, right? Telling someone, you're good, just start posting every week.
Right.
But there is that, right? It's that idea of you're your biggest obstacle, or overcoming you is the hardest part.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, once you're there, if you're totally actualized, you're in the flow, you're full of self-love, you're such a powerful attractor. Everything's going to come so easy and it wouldn't be a challenge. All the stuff that is the challenge is our self-talk, right? Is all of our mental obstacles that are lowering our vibration, is blocking our ability to take action and to attract, So yeah, we are 100% the problem. The work itself is easy if you trust yourself.
Yeah. Would you recommend someone in this position that's trying to transition to their more authentic self? Would you recommend reprogramming how you think, or deprogramming what you already think? Like, what's more important to focus on?
Well, that's an interesting question. So I heard a channeled message, somebody who is a channeler, answer a similar question where the question was sort of like, is it better to just try to raise my vibration and focus on the positive, or should I try to heal my negative stuff? And they said, you're going to need to heal the negative stuff. For as much as the positive is a higher vibration, you can't really fully embody it as long as you're holding these lower vibration beliefs. So I think you do have to do some healing and shedding of old stuff before you're really going to be able to embody that higher side. So it's good to also be watching your thoughts and trying to become more positive and catch yourself when you're being negative. But in my opinion, there's a lot of shadow work that needs to happen, a lot of inner child wounding, even karmic stuff that you don't even know what it is, but it still needs to be healed. It's still acting as a pattern in your life. And these are these unconscious saboteurs, and so they will continue to be in the way until you reckon with.
So then how does one heal from something that they're not even fully aware of what they're trying to heal from?
Okay, so I have this awesome integration protocol that, first of all, it's so much easier than you would think that it is. We've been told, oh, you need to pay thousands to a therapist. And literally, we're creating our entire world with our words, with our thoughts, our feelings, and our words. We're creating our reality. And we can simply use our words to uncreate that reality as well. So the idea is that the heart is more than just an organ, and it's more than just the chakra. The heart is the portal. It's the gate to all the rest of you, the quantum aspects of you, the much bigger spirit. And so this concept of the higher self, it's like the version of you that has had all the lifetimes already. It has all the wisdom, all the knowledge, and I'm the little me, and I only have this much information. But when I'm connecting to my heart, I'm accessing all the rest of me. So the idea is we have these aspects of ourselves that are not integrated, right? Our wounded child. I came up in a violent home. My inner child is still in a violent home. And by bringing them into the heart is the integration, is kind of melting down that story, returning to the higher self, and it's no longer active. It's sort of put to bed. So here's what you do. You sit with a sense of your heart, like you're focusing on your chest. I like to imagine holding an orb inside there. So I'm just got my energy, my focus is here in the chest. And then you call up the face of your wounded child, right? So your friend, we'll call him Bill. I'm going to say to myself, unworthy Bill. When I think about unworthy Bill, how old is Bill? Where did unworthiness begin for me? And maybe it's a childhood story. Maybe I am unable to identify where this feeling of unworthiness is coming from. So either way, unworthy Bill, I know who I'm talking to, right? So I'm calling up in my mind's eye a picture of myself while holding myself in my chest. There are 5 things to do. We're going to forgive. We're going to return our energy. We're going to revoke commands, dissolve contracts. I'm missing one, and rescind vows. These are all the dynamics that keep this story perpetuating. And so we're going to dissolve it all. So first, I'm going to call up unworthy Bill in my mind's eye. And I'm going to say, Bill, I love you. Please forgive me for any harm that I have caused you. When you are apologizing to yourself, what you are really apologizing for is, I'm sorry I didn't integrate you earlier. I'm sorry I have left you for 40 years as a child still in the trauma of a violent home. I'm sorry I abandoned you and didn't realize you needed healing. Okay. Please forgive me for the harm I have caused you. Say it 3 times, because 3 times repeating it sort of deepens the feelings. You feel it more each time you say it. Then I'm going to say, and I forgive you for the harm you've caused me 3 times. Then I'm going to say, I return to you all of your energy that I was holding. So I'm giving back those feelings of unworthiness that I've been holding. I'm giving them back to Bill where they started from, right? And I call all of my energy back into my heart. So my present self, I'm pulling into the chest and I'm giving back all of the other energy to unworthy Bill. Then we're going to say, I rescind all vows between us, because we may have made vows in past lives we don't know about, and I don't know what they are. So a blanket statement, I rescind all vows between us 3 times. Then you're going to say, I revoke all commands between us. Commands, other people might call them curses, but basically we have used, if I were to say to somebody, I will never forgive you for this, I have now just commanded to the universe that you and I have conflict forever, right? So I'm revoking. Well, I don't know what I said, but I take it back now, right? So I revoke all commands between us. And then the final piece is I dissolve all soul contracts between us, because we make contracts to finish out the karma that's not resolved, right? So if I have a legacy of unworthiness, I have contracted to go through that more until I find a way to heal it. This is how you heal it. So we're just neutralizing everything. So just by being in that, I mean, you can't just chatter it away without being in the heart. You know what I mean? It's not words without feeling. It's words with deep feeling. I love you. Please forgive me. I return your energy that I was holding. I call myself back into my heart. I revoke my vows. I dissolve my contract. I rescind these commands. I take it all back into my heart. That is the integration piece. Now I am whole. I've pulled it all back into myself. To finalize, when I'm dealing with an aspect of myself, I like to imagine hugging them at the end after we've done this clearing. I'm picturing putting my arms around them and pulling them all the way into the chest until they melt down into me. And now you no longer have unworthy Bill floating around out there. He is integrated, and he would find that how healing this is. It's the simplest thing in the world to do. I try to do 3 a day, every day, because it's all the things. Anything that's got a charge for you is unintegrated energy. And this is a very simple exercise that helps you resolve those.
What do you say to people that have resistance to this idea, or, they say, oh, that sounds cheesy, or when they say it to themselves, they don't really feel it. For example, right, someone might say, I love you to themselves, and they're like that felt really weird, right? And they're just not really in tune with what they're saying. What do you suggest for
Yeah.
those people?
Well, I'm certainly not going, I mean, they're showing me that they're not ready yet, right? Um, so, I mean, if they're completely resistant to this whole concept, I don't know that I have that much to say. Like, we're probably not speaking the same language. But if somebody wants to get there, but it feels weird, I mean, it absolutely does feel, it feels weird to talk out loud to nothing. It feels weird to talk to yourself in the mirror. All of that is uncomfortable. So the other thing that I like to remind people is that you have helpers, you have a helper team on the other side that is absolutely sitting there waiting for you to ask for help. They are not allowed to intervene on your behalf or assist you in any way without your permission because you have free will. But I asked for help for everything. And so when you don't know how to do the thing you're trying to do, that's where you ask for help. So if I'm trying to feel love for myself, but I can't find it, then I'm going to ask my helper team, help me find a way to self-love. I don't know how to do it, but I need some assistance. Will you please help me? And you will see, maybe you'll get a random phone call. Maybe you'll come across a video on YouTube. Maybe you'll see an episode of something that's exactly about this topic. But you will start to receive some input that helps you shift your beliefs or helps you think of it a new way or helps you have that courage. When you feel like you're trying to change and you're up against your own resistance, soften. You can't force it. So by softening and asking for help and saying, all right, I gave it a shot today, but I don't really know what I'm doing. Can you help me? Then you can just go about your day and not think about it again. And you will receive that help.
Now, for someone who is in that transitional period and they're going from that sleepwalking to more authentic self, I think an interesting idea here is, and a common one, is how anxiety affects this transition. And a racing mind almost prevents you from looking deeper, correct?
For
Um,
sure.
right. So what is going on here? Is it common? Is it hand in hand? Do we see anxiety with a lot of people that are trying to transition? Is it a byproduct of transitioning? Like what is the relationship?
Yeah, I mean, I love this question because I'm actually in the middle of preparing my next video, which is about the 9 types of anxiety, that all personality types have their sort of own area, their own way of being anxious. But yes, you absolutely will have an uptick in anxiety as you are trying to expand yourself because your ego, it's not malicious. It's not it's a program. It's not alive. It doesn't have a consciousness. It's just doing what it was told to do. And what it was told to do is to help you play small so that you can have a physical life, right? You went from being an all-knowing being and inserted yourself into a totally limited reality. And the ego is the thing that's supposed to help you have that experience that you said you wanted. And now you're trying to extract yourself from that and remember yourself again as a bigger being, as more powerful than an ego. And that's the threat to the ego, right? So you will absolutely receive pushback. So there's actually that, I would say that's basically your nervous system freaking out it's like, no, don't throw yourself off that cliff. Like that's not safe for you. So you're feeling it. You want to admit that it's there and acknowledge it, but you're not going to buy into whatever story it's telling you, right? If my self-talk is, I will make a fool of myself. Everyone is going to laugh at me. Have you ever seen all those mean comments on Instagram? Whatever is my chatter, instead of really buying into it, again, I'm watching myself have it, right? And I'm saying, oh, look at me. I'm all spun out right now. Again, pull it into the heart. The heart, think of it as like lava that melts it all down. It's like golden lava and you just melt it all down. So whatever story I'm in the middle of, pull it into the chest and imagine it melting down. And you're going to say to yourself, I love and accept the part of myself who believes this is going to be a nightmare. I love and accept the part of myself who knows I'm fully capable of doing that. I love and accept the part of myself who feels afraid to try. I love and accept the part of myself who's willing to try. And you kind of name those feelings and then offer yourself an alternate perspective. And it, again, allows you to feel more neutral. You can see, oh, I'm just like, I could pick any of these stories to buy into, right? And I'm picking the super negative one. It sort of neutralizes the anxiety. You may have to do that multiple times. And then there's also something called EFT, emotional freedom technique, which is tapping. Have you heard of that, the tapping?
No.
Okay, so this is a healing technique that's working with your nervous system, and it's tapping in a particular order on certain acupuncture points. And so you're tapping here, here. As you're talking about your self-talk, you're saying, oh, my anxiety. Oh, it's all so scary. Oh, I can't do it all. Oh, I am strong and I'm capable. It's sort of doing your self-talk while you're doing this tapping thing. And it's like reprogramming your brain. It's taking the charge off the emotions of this story. It's giving your brain a different way to look at this without all those alarm bells happening. So that's actually a really cool technique to sort of calm down the nervous system when you're in the middle of something.
With the tapping, so what is happening here? Is it you're bringing awareness to the body so you're able to disassociate from certain thoughts?
Yeah, it also reminds me of what EMDR therapy is doing. EMDR, don't ask me what it stands for. It's like eye movement, something, something. But the concept is this. When you have a rut of a negative association, whenever I have this memory, I have this feeling come up, right? Now they're associated. They're like a superhighway in the brain that when I think this thought, I feel this feeling and I can't get out of that loop. So by thinking the thoughts again, but now adding random sensation, your brain is having to think to process that thought in a new way. It can't do the rut. It's having to pay attention to other stuff. And it's basically creating a new connection to that memory that does not include the charged feeling. So it's sort of the same thing with the tapping. It's like getting your brain to rewire itself as you're thinking these negative thoughts. It's not bringing up those emotional charges anymore because it's having to deal with physical sensation. And it just sort of neutralizes those edgy feelings that you're having.
Yeah. So going back to the idea of anxiety that we were talking about, that's super interesting because one, it's comforting to know that it's part of the process, right? And two, it leads me to next wonder, what is the journey of someone going from sleepwalking personality to authentic self? What is, because you've worked with many people, what is on average you see tend to be the life cycle journey of someone in that transitional period, right? So for example, one thing is the anxiety. You said anxiety is very common in that transition. So
Yeah.
what is other points here that are common?
The sort of what trips us up along the way.
Yeah, like what do you notice people that tends to be the same in people's transformation journeys?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we really need to get out of the blame game. A big, big part of up-leveling yourself is acknowledging the law of attraction and that you are creating your own reality, right? That you have to take responsibility, that this guy is not being a jerk to me. It's that I have manifested out of my beliefs about myself somebody who talks to me the way I believe about myself. So I'm no longer blaming bad guys out there. I'm taking responsibility for whatever I see as an aspect of myself, and I'm willing to acknowledge that, right? So if I say I had the worst day ever, right? I got in a car accident. I got in a fight. Somebody called me a name. I really embarrassed myself. It was like the crappiest day ever. That is my energy, right? There's something in me that is not okay. And now I'm creating a reality that's reflecting that back to me. So that is a huge hurdle to get over because a lot of us are way more comfortable with it being somebody else's fault that I'm in this crappy situation that I'm in. I'd really prefer to think of myself as awesome and you as the bad guy and it's all your fault and it's not my fault. And so that's a stopping place, is being willing to, think of all of those hostile divorces, right? All of those, that guy's a jerk. he did it to me. He's the bad guy. I'm the good guy. You have to let all of that go. And that seems to be a major stumbling block for a lot of people. And just acknowledging that you are creating your own reality. Only a small percentage of people currently really understand that, you know? So I find it hard to have that conversation with somebody who totally doesn't know anything about the law of attraction or doesn't understand that their world is mirroring themselves back to them. Like, we're in such different places that I can't counsel them further, you know? If so that's a big one. Anxiety is a big one. And you're going to have to feel a lot of those old feelings that you were trying not to feel your whole life. Like, most of us have coping mechanisms in place because we're trying to avoid feeling the pain from childhood, the feelings of shame, the feelings of fear, all of that stuff that integration exercise that I taught you is a really essential part of processing all of that stuff. But you can't skip it. It has to be faced. So that's called shadow work, right?
Yeah.
That's called the shadow work. So you have to be willing to do the shadow work. And a lot of people prefer to do what we're calling spiritual bypassing, which is to just announce, no, I'm great. And I meditate and I believe in angels and I don't need to do any of that shadow work. I'm just great the way I am. It's generally not true. There's a lot of shadow work that needs to be.
Yeah, I think that's my issue with affirmations, and the idea of affirmations is without a solid foundation of your past and the healing of it, if anything, it almost creates more anxiety. Like this dissonance of
Right.
you
It's the
saying it.
dissonance. It just doesn't
Yeah,
land as true. So you're just,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah. So even the dissonance that, like, if you're trying to say an affirmation and in your heart, you're like, that's not true. If you're saying, I am so powerful, and really you're like, I'm totally not powerful. Pull that into the heart. I love and accept the part of myself who doesn't really believe that I'm powerful. I love and accept the part of myself who might be afraid to admit that I really am. I love and accept the part of myself who totally knows that she is powerful. And to just kind of come at it from all the angles, and it will neutralize that feeling. It will help you get there.
So if I were to summarize, kind of what we've discussed here, are you in a way saying that this idea of integration of the parts of you that don't feel whole and integrating it to make yourself whole is enough to overcome that hurdle? For this example with my friend, right? Let's say he does integration and you're saying, is this enough for him to go over that mental hurdle he has of not posting?
It is. It is, because what's happening is basically how open is the heart is how powerful do we feel. The more closed the heart is, and I'm just trying to solve everything in the mind, I'm actually my least powerful. As soon as I start pulling things into the heart, integrating those things, I am opening the heart. And I have now pulled energy back into myself that felt like it wasn't mine. Now it is mine. So I've actually up-leveled my vibration. With every healing that I do, I've given myself more energy and I've opened my heart to access the rest of my energy. And so you will find that the limitations at this vibration are no longer present at a higher vibration. And so a lot of those limitations kind of just dissolve away as you elevate your vibration and your sense of self.
Does this contribute to an overall personality of no longer believing in limitations, or is there always going to be new limitations that someone's constantly hitting?
Oh, what a great question. I mean, I think ultimately there are no limitations. I think you can get to the point where you understand that I like stories, but there will probably always be a new challenge to face. It's not like it's just placid waters now for the rest of your life. It's more that you have what it takes to reckon with these things. So they're not seen as deal breaker obstacles. It's just like, oh, I'm in some choppy water, but I know what to do for myself. And so it's like less and less of a big deal. It's less and less difficult to navigate challenges. But I imagine, I will tell you, I've not arrived at the place yet where I'm all powerful and nothing gets to me. But I would say I'm way more resilient than I used to be, right? Something that could maybe shatter me is now a down day, right?
It sounds like this idea of like a personal belief system's like a muscle, right? It gets stronger over
Yeah.
time to overcome any sort of limiting belief or
Yeah.
self-doubt that you might have. You are stronger at handling it.
Yeah. And I think the muscle part of what's getting stronger is your ability to trust yourself.
Hmm.
The more you challenge yourself to face a difficulty in a new way and it goes well for you, now you trust that process a little more the next time. And then eventually you get to the point where instead of trust, it's knowing. It's a knowingness. You're not holding a belief. You're just at peace because you know that it always works out for me.
Yeah. Candace, this was an awesome conversation. And I love to ask my guests this closing question, which is, as you know, the show's called Learn or Be Learned. So I always ask, what is one life lesson that either you learned from someone or you want the audience to learn from your life?
What is one lesson that I learned? I kind of already said it, but what I've learned is that really it all comes down to self-love and your ability to love and accept yourself no matter what, without judgment, to have compassion for yourself. That really paves the way for anything you'd like to do in this life. To have self-love in place makes it possible for you to have the life you want.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and being on the show.
Thank you very, very much. I really enjoyed myself.